Factors leading to the formation of the Muslim League. The following factors were responsible for the formation of the Muslim League. 1. Loss of sovereignty by the Mughal rulers. The British established their supremacy in India after dethroning the Mughal rulers who were the followers of Islam. Therefore, the Muslims became bitter enemies of the British. They participated in the Wahhabi movement, which aimed to end British domination in India. They also took part in the uprising of 1857. Now, this made the British view them with suspicion. The British government consciously discriminated against the Muslims, holding them responsible for the uprising of 1857. However, after the 1870s, the British government changed its attitude and followed the policy of appeasing the Muslims in order to undermine the national movement. They sowed the seeds of dissension between the two communities and encouraged separatist and communal tendencies. 2. British policy of divide and rule. As we have discussed above, after the First War of Independence in 1857, the British became apprehensive of the safety and stability of their empire in India. They saw the unity between the Hindus and the Muslims as a threat to them. Thus, to check the growth of a united national feeling in India and to encourage communal and separatist tendencies in Indian politics, they decided to follow the policy of divide and rule. They did so in the following manner. First, in 1871, Lord Mayo's government adopted a resolution which made Urdu the medium of instruction for Muslims in primary and secondary schools and increased government aid to educational institutions run by the Muslims. Second, they tried to create hatred among the Hindus and the Muslims by portraying Muslim rulers as plunderers and Hindu rulers as cruel kings to their Muslim subjects. British policy of divide and rule. Third, they tried to justify the partition of Bengal by convincing the Muslims that Bengal was being partitioned to create a new Muslim-majority province where the Hindus would not be able to subvert their interests. Fourth, they tried to utilize the caste structure to turn the non-Brahmins and the lower castes against high castes. Fifth, they treated Hindus, Muslims and Sikhs as separate communities and accepted their communal leaders as authentic representatives of all their co-religionists. Sixth, they tried to spread communal hatred through the press, posters, literature and public platform. 3. Relative backwardness of the Muslim community in education, trade and industry. The communal and separatist trend of thinking grew among the Muslims to some extent because of their relative backwardness in education, trade and industry. First, the upper-class Muslims comprising zamindars and aristocrats during the first 70 years of the 19th century were anti-British. They were conservative and hostile to modern education. Now, because of this, the number of Muslims educated in Western system of education remained small. Second, the British government in India had consciously discriminated against the Muslims after 1858, holding them responsible for the uprising in 1857. They were discriminated in the recruitment to civil and military services. Third, the Muslim community was not much involved in the growth of any organized industry. Here too, they lagged behind. Fourth, some members of the Muslim community did not keep up with the modern trends in social and cultural spheres. This was because they were proud of their own literature and culture and did not adopt the Western system of education. Many Hindus, on the other hand, adopted the Western system of education. Since modern education was essential for entry into government service, the Muslims had the disadvantage in this respect. In these circumstances, it was quite easy for the British officials to incite the Muslims against the Hindus. 4. Role of Sir Syed Ahmad Khan. Sir Syed Ahmad Khan was a great educationist and social reformer. He regarded Hindus and Muslims to be one Qaum, that is, nation. He founded the Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental College at Aligarh, which had both Hindu and Muslim patrons. However, under the influence of the British principal of Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental College in the 1880s, he gave up his earlier views and declared that the political interests of Hindus and Muslims were different. When the Indian National Congress was founded, Sir Syed Ahmad Khan opposed it. He founded the United Indian Patriotic Association in 1888, mainly with a view to oppose the Congress. In this effort, he was supported by Mr. Beck, the British principal of Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental, that is MAO College, Aligarh. Beck's idea was that Anglo-Muslim unity was possible, but Hindu-Muslim unity was impossible. It was said that Sir Syed Ahmad believed that since the Hindus formed the majority of the Indian population, they would dominate the Muslims in case of a withdrawal of the British rule. He felt that the continuance of British rule was a guarantee for the welfare and progress of the community. Therefore, he declared that if the educated Muslims support the British, the latter would reward them with government jobs and other special favours. Erroneous interpretation of history. The manner in which Indian history was interpreted in those days contributed to the growth of communal thinking among the Hindus and the Muslims. First, some British and communal historians divided Indian history into the Hindu and the Muslim periods. The rule of the Turks, Afghans and Mughals was called the Muslim rule, where the rulers were said to be the followers of Islam and their subjects the followers of other religions. In the so-called Hindu period, Muslim rulers were dubbed as foreign invaders who had settled in India. They portrayed Rana Pratap and Shivaji as national heroes and Akbar and Aurangzeb as foreigners and infused communal feelings. Second, the British and communal historians ignored the notion of a composite culture in India and tried to create a rift between the two communities. They failed to interpret that the diversity was primarily class-wise and region-wise, and not religion-wise. Erroneous interpretation of history. Third, some communal historians highlighted the myth that Indian society and culture had reached great heights during the ancient period, but was declining during the medieval period, which is dominated by Mughal rulers. They did not give much importance to the contribution of the medieval period to the development of Indian economy, religion, art, literature, culture, and society. Fourth, the communal bias was propagated through poetry, drama, novels, short stories, newspapers, etc. In the words of Mahatma Gandhi, communal harmony could not be permanently established in our country so long as highly distorted versions of history were taught in her schools. Rise of assertive nationalism. The assertive nationalists played an important role in the national movement, but some of their actions marked a step back in respect of the growth of national unity. The speeches and actions of some of the assertive nationalists annoyed some sections of Indians. For example, the propagation of Shivaji and Ganapati festivals by Tilak, Aurobindo Ghosh's concept of India as mother, and nationalism as religion, and the initiation of the anti-partition agitation with dips in the Ganga did not appeal to some of the Muslims. Economic backwardness of the country. The economic backwardness of the country contributed to the growth of communalism in India. Due to the British colonial policies, India lacked modern industrial development, and there was acute unemployment among the educated youth. As a consequence, there was fierce competition among the youth to secure the few available jobs. Now, this led the people to demand reservation in jobs on the basis of caste, creed, or religion. The British used this opportunity to push further their policy of divide and rule and fan communal rivalry among the educated Indians on the question of jobs in government service. However, the unemployed people failed to realize that the British themselves were responsible for their economic backwardness. Aims and objectives of the Muslim League. The objectives of the League were laid down as follows. First, to promote among the Muslims of India support for the British government and to remove any misconceptions regarding the intention of the government in relation to Indian Muslims. Second, to protect and advance the political rights and interests of the Muslims and to represent their needs and aspirations to the government in mild and moderate language. Third, to prevent the rise of feelings of hostility between the Muslims of India and other communities. Impact of the Muslim League on the national movement. The Lucknow Pact. The period during the First World War, 1914 to 1919, was of intense nationalist political activity. The events during the war and the prevalent sentiments were responsible for the signing of the Lucknow Pact between the Congress and the Muslim League. Significance of the Lucknow Pact. 1. Hindu-Muslim unity. The joint scheme symbolized Hindu-Muslim unity. Both the communities agreed to compromise in some areas for the common good. The Congress compromised on its secular character by accepting the scheme of separate electorates for Muslims. The Muslim League accepted the principles of election and the majority rule. As a result of this pact, the Hindus and Muslims worked together from 1916 to 1922. 2. Unity within the Congress. The Lucknow session and the signing of the Lucknow Pact brought about unity between the assertive nationalists and the early nationalists. After the Surat session of 1907, both wings of the Congress were moving in different directions. They came together in 1916, and as a result, the Congress was strengthened. The Congress president of the Lucknow session of 1916, Ambika Charan Majumdar, rightly remarked, "If the United Congress was buried at Surat, it is reborn at Lucknow." 3. Pressure on the government. The unity between the Congress and the League and between the early nationalists and the assertive nationalists became a threat to the British government of India. Until now, the government had been repressing the nationalist movement by using force. The government now had no excuse for delaying political or constitutional reforms. 4. Necessity to pacify Indians. As the First World War continued, The leaders of the Congress and the League impressed upon the British government that their demands for constitutional reforms should not be rejected if they wished Indians to be loyal to the British. The government, therefore, felt it necessary to pacify the Indians by the Declaration of August 20th, 1917, which promised a policy of gradual development of self-government institutions in India. Drawbacks of the Lucknow